Hey everybody, my name is JRoach. I'm 27 years old and I'm currently teaching in Belton ISD, kind of like middle of Texas, an hour north of Austin-ish. This is going to be my fourth total year teaching, so I'm fairly new to the game, but I grew up with a mom who was a teacher and my grandmother was a teacher, and so I feel like I was kind of raised in school, in a school setting, and I just decided to go to grad school. I'm currently teaching resource special ed. I've been doing kind of a skills setting the last 2 years, and I did actually my first year of teach a year of general ed. So I kind of got a pretty good idea in just my 4 short years of where I want to be and kind of all the different things that make up a school, because I've kind of been around the block as far as the different things that I've done. You will see me glancing to the side. That's just to make sure I'm hitting all of the questions that you want in the introduction. So as far as demographics go, we are actually a brand new campus this year, so none of that information is up on the website. However, I did pull the information of the campus that is going to be closest to our demographics. So we have this school that I pulled has 1 American Indian, 12 Asian or Pacific Islanders, 152 Hispanic, 30 Black or non-Hispanic, 236 white non-Hispanic, and 21 2 or more races. So you can see that Belton is a pretty diverse district, which is actually really awesome, because when I first moved here, when I was way younger as a student in Belton ISD, we were not. So it's actually really great to see that a bunch of different kinds of families are moving into the district. The total number of students that we are projected to have at Charter Oak Elementary is anywhere from 325 to 350 for the first school year. However, our campus is built to hold at least 800 students. So we are starting small, but we will definitely be growing. They just wanted to give us lower projected numbers for the first year to get us up and running. We have grade levels kindergarten through 5th grade. I just gave you the ethnic makeup of the campus that is closest to us. Student socioeconomic makeup. We are looking at we're going to have about 42% of our kiddos that are going to be economically disadvantaged. Let's see. Number of faculty. We have 3 teachers per grade level, plus we have a resource teacher, a functional academics teacher, and a life skills teacher, plus our gym staff, intervention staff, dyslexia staff. So we're looking at about 50 teachers, 50 faculty. Faculty ethnic makeup. I don't have those stats offhand, being first year campus. We haven't even started yet. We've all met together once or twice to kind of get to know one another. But honestly, we're not even allowed in our classrooms yet. And so I cannot get you that information. I asked my principal for it, and she said she doesn't have it written on paper yet. Faculty range and average years of experience. Again, this is our first year. We have teachers coming from all over the district, all over the state, and even some coming from out of state. So I don't know the average years. I know that I have 4, this will be my 4th year, and I know that several of our teachers have significantly more experience than I do. Student academic issues of concern. So obviously we're going to have a special ed population. We're actually going to have 2 bilingual sections as well. I don't consider bilingual a concern, but I do know that that's something that can be if it's not addressed properly. We are going to have obviously some kiddos with some dyslexia, and I said the 42% of economically disadvantaged kiddos. And so we're going to have some concerns, but overall I feel like with the 325 to 350 kiddos, we're gonna get through it. We're going to be able to work through it, because we're not going to have a huge number of students our first year as a campus. Student cultural or social issues of concern. With that 42%, you never know. Some of our kiddos who are culturally disadvantaged will come in and they will be fine. And then you have some kiddos that are going to need a little bit more guidance and support, maybe behaviorally and academically, depending on if the parents value education, if they're involved. You know, there are lots of different factors that go into if I personally consider that a student is going to be a concern. For the field experience activity that you're going to see after this clip, it is my principal, Jennifer Connor, and we are sitting in her office at our brand new school, and it was just the two of us, and she actually had already kind of put the master schedule together. Now, of course, there will probably be tweaks along the way, but she gave me a great experience. She explained how she puts the master schedule together, how she started when she didn't really know what she was doing, and she kind of explains the building blocks on what she starts with, then where she moves, etc., etc. What do I expect to learn from the experience? Well, I've already done that. I'm actually filming my introduction after I did my meeting with my principal. And so what I expected to learn, honestly, before going in was just kind of, okay, this is what it looks like, all laid out on paper. Honestly, I expected to be a little bit overwhelmed. However, after sitting with Miss Connor, I can say now what I actually learned was she gave me those building blocks and the strategies on what she does to start the master schedule, and then how she builds on top of that. And it was actually very, very beneficial for someone who's never built a master schedule. Now, I am the resource teacher, and so I do build my schedule every year based on the master schedule. And so it was very nice to hear her perspectives, and it gave me better insight on how to create my personal schedule right now as a resource teacher. Information about the administrators that I observed. Miss Connor is our head principal at Charter Oak Elementary, and she was my previous principal at Miller Heights Elementary the last 2 years, where I'm coming from. She has well over 8 years of experience as a principal, and so she has well over, she's got actually 10 to 12 years of experience creating master schedules because she was an assistant principal before she got a principal job. And the rationale for choosing this leader to observe is just I feel like I have a very good relationship with Mrs. Connor. This will be my 3rd year working for her and with her. And when I told her I was going back for graduate school to become an administrator, she was very, very excited for me. She was definitely in my corner, and she wants to help. And so wherever I can get help and suggestions, I will take it. So stay tuned. Here we go. Hi, all right, so this is Jennifer Connor. She's my principal here at Charter Oak Elementary, and we are going to be going over the master schedule and what it takes to kind of build that master schedule and everything that goes into that.
Hello. Okay, so one of the most important things to do when you begin working on the master schedule for the following year is you need to think about what worked this year and what didn't. Okay. And one of the biggest things to think about is it's just a large puzzle. Mm-hmm. And, you know, when you're putting your puzzle together, it's best to put your edges first. Sure. And then you start working in and you get those details. And so the master schedule is a lot like that. So what I think about when I start is the specials times, like when all the grade levels have their planning period. Right. So not only did it work with the flow of the day, but you know, was there any feedback that the grade levels gave me? Okay. And typically the grade levels give a lot of feedback, right. and it's usually very targeted, and it's very helpful, especially if you ask for it in that way. Right. And you ask through targeted questions, you get really good feedback. Now, another thing to think about is like the chunks of time that every grade level is going to get based on when their planning is. And then you think about, okay, once that's done, how will their individual lunch time for that grade level and for that class fit in with everything else? Right. And so it can take up to a week. Honestly, it can
Okay.
take up to a week to get everything to fit together. So you do it. You put in specials, and you put in lunches, and then that creates your frame, so to speak.
Okay.
And then after that, you start drilling in. You know me, drill down to the details.
Yes.
And then you start thinking, okay, so when are we going to put in our 15 minute social emotional learning time,
Right.
our morning meeting?
Mm-hmm.
When are we going to put in all of our instructional blocks
Right.
that are part of the day
Mm-hmm.
for math, science, social studies, and ELAR? And those are very large chunks of time. And then also you have to, another layer, you have to think about, so is it realistic that a kindergartner is going to do social studies for 60 minutes every day?
Right.
And it's not.
Mm-hmm.
However, you can embed that very easily and successfully into the ELAR block,
Mm-hmm.
and that frees up a little bit more time for sensory breaks for our younger grade levels, because we know they need it.
Right.
And so, with the right amount of exercise, scheduled at the right time strategically, well, then when they come back into the classroom, their learning is actually better.
Right.
And so we've been doing that at Miller Heights, and so we're going to try to do that again at Charter Oak.
Yes.
Okay, so all of that is how I start. And then I actually start putting things on paper.
Okay.
So the way we have it right now is, would you like for me just to go through every grade level?
Sure,
And
that would be
then,
excellent.
And then you just provide some feedback too.
Yes, that'd be awesome.
Okay. And then this is our process. I just thought about this. But then after that, based on this, then we'll be able to come up with a pretty rough schedule, pretty close schedule for resource.
Okay.
As well.
Yes.
And then that way, that ensures, and dyslexia, and that ensures that your resource kids aren't losing tier 1 instruction time. And same with our dyslexia. Okay. And then I think you remember this too, but speech comes out of music.
Yes.
And they never pull them out of an instructional block.
Yes.
And so that's something that you always have to adhere to as well.
Okay.
All right. So you've got, so for kindergarten, what we decided is I've already purchased the social emotional kits for SEL for K through 5. And we're using the second step curriculum.
Okay.
That was the curriculum that our 3 grade levels piloted last year at Miller, and the feedback was really good. So I forked over the money, and everybody's getting some, but they're really expensive. So we're going to write a beef grant for the rest of them to supplement. So everybody's going to have their own kit by January, February, when everything comes in from the beef grants. Good. And it supports district initiatives as well. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to have SEL universally every morning, and it's going to be for 15 minutes. And I'm going to start it, I'm going to start announcements at 7:40, and then as soon as I finish, they'll be short as always, short and quick. And then as soon as that's over, everybody needs to go to the rug, regardless of grade level or class or teacher, and they're going to do their morning meeting. And people can call it what they want. Sure. I think we're probably going to call it morning meeting, because SEL sounds maybe a little too fuzzy or new age for some, and it's not going to, I don't want it to feel like that. Yeah. So it'll be our morning meeting. And we can talk more about the curriculum for that and the YAG for that later. Okay, and then we're going to have this, and then we're going to have, so this is our block for ELAR. Okay. And then for kinder, and we've got it broken down. And some of the things that I'm still playing with are just exactly like what's going to fit in within this big instructional block. Okay. And then I think it's really important to just be realistic when you're making your schedule, and go ahead and budget on paper your transition or restroom time, because it takes up time. Absolutely. And clearly, it's going to take more than 5 minutes for kinder at the beginning of the year. Sure. It could take up to 20 minutes. Right. And that's okay. That's all right. We have to take 2 steps back to gain 3 steps forward. Absolutely. And so that's how we're going to be doing it. But that's how I've got it scheduled. And then they always go to restroom before specials, because if not, everybody has to go when they're in music and gym, and that's very disruptive. So, but that time will get shorter. They're going to have that. They're going to have specials, and then they'll come back, and and really with kinder, they may have to go to the potty also afterwards, but that's okay. That's going to be at their, as needed.
Right.
So I don't want to put that on there. Then they're going to have science. Then they have lunch. And you notice I've got 3 separate times.
Yes.
Those are for the 3 different sections.
Okay, so staggering the lunch times.
Yeah, so we stagger the lunch times. Now, as our campus grows and, we've got 850 kids.
Right.
Well, then we're going to be staggering them maybe by a minute.
Sure.
Or a minute and a half.
Right.
But right now, we have the luxury of time, so we've got 5 minutes.
Absolutely.
And I still don't know. I still kind of feel like that's too much, so I may condense that just a little bit. That's something I'm still thinking about.
Sure. Well, for kinder, though, in the beginning of the year.
Great. How are you?
Good.
Good.
I hate to interrupt.
It's fine.
I have one little question on the doors to the cafeteria.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen those?
Yes.
They open.
Okay, we're back. Typical principal interruptions happening. So here we go.
Back to task. Okay, so then after lunch, the kids are going to have their writing block, and then they're going to have another restroom in transition. And notice, this is about the most time that anybody's that age is going to be able to sit still.
Right.
However, in the beginning, the teachers are going to need to be very cognizant of movement.
Yes.
And, and keeping them moving. So they're going to go to the restroom, and then they're going to have recess.
Okay.
Now, and then they're going to come back, and they're going to have a restroom at the end of that, I would imagine, just because they're 5. And they're used to being able to go to the potty whenever they want to.
Mm-hmm.
So then they're going to come back, and they're going to have math for the rest of the day. Now, I want you to notice I've only got 5 minutes here on the schedule for packing up and transitioning for dismissal.
Right.
However, in the beginning of the year, in kinder and first, it's probably realistically going to take 20 to 25 minutes.
Absolutely.
Because we don't want to rush the kids, because we don't want them to feel disoriented. We don't want them crying when they're on their way to dismissal locations. Right. We want them to feel very taken care of.
Absolutely.
So, anyway, but that's pretty standard. Now, also, I don't have another sensory break built in the morning yet, but I haven't done that yet because I need to go back and I need to look at our minutes for our district statement.
Okay.
And I just need to see where I can carve out some time.
Absolutely.
Because there's not enough time in the day as it is to meet all of the requirements with C&I department.
Right.
And still have lunch and recess and go to the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
But I want our schedule to be a view of reality, not a philosophy.
Absolutely.
So we need to balance both. So that's why there's still a few more tweaks to go with it. Okay, so for first grade, we're going to start with this. Then we're going to get into math. They have specials. They're going to have a quick transition. And then back, I'm sure there will be bathrooms there. And then have science, have another transition to restroom break, go to lunch. Then they're going to come back and they're going to have their writing block.
Okay.
And as you see, like the writing mini lesson is broken down, and then independent conferencing time. Now, we know that the first and second week of school, our first graders are not going to be doing independent writing for 40 minutes, and that's okay. But we have to build it in.
Absolutely.
And they will work toward that.
Yes.
Okay, and then we do have a brain break scheduled here because they're going to need a break after all of that independent writing. So they're going to do a quick brain break. And then, of course, at the beginning of the year, it could be a 10-minute break. But later, we need to whittle it down to 5. Then we've got word work, and we've got our reading mini lesson. Got to have our guided reading, independent time, and then we're going to have our flex intervention time.
Okay.
And that's kind of like what we used to call our tiger time.
Right.
We're going to call it something else here.
Okay.
Then we're going to have recess, and then we're going to have our independent reading time and our silent reading. Now, back to our flex intervention. So the goal is for this to be staggered for every grade level. So our intervention team can come in, or resource, or dyslexia, that's when all that's going to happen.
Okay.
And that can be a sheltered time. Now, one of the challenges is getting in all of our instructional minutes.
Right.
So this counts as as instructional time. It's not tier 1.
Right.
It's going to be tier 2 or tier 3 even.
Right.
Based on how we organize the kids. But if we didn't do it this way, and we counted this as a tier 1 instructional block for all the grade levels, that means that our resource students, who are some of our most struggling learners,
Right.
and our dyslexia kids who are also struggling, would be missing vital tier 1 instruction. And ethically, I can't handle that. And so it doesn't make any sense to pull out kids who need to be in class. So anyway, this is our solution to that.
Perfect.
And then they have recess, and then they come back for their 15 minutes, and then they pack up.
Excellent.
And so one thing that we can do is, I think this is like the perfect time to do the interactive read aloud, because this is at the end of the day.
Right.
We are coming back together as a community within the classroom. And with our new FPC adoption, we have phenomenal interactive read aloud books, and most of them are big, and the larger books. And so it's a perfect way to end the day before you pack up. Okay, so do you have any questions about first grade?
I do not. For video purposes, I do want to say Belton has adopted Fontes and Pinnell Classroom for this upcoming year. So when you heard her refer to FPC, that's what we're talking about.
That's right. Let's go back to Kinder for a minute. I didn't tell you this. Kinder does not have a flex intervention time.
Yes.
And we may work toward that. However, we are starting out in our year 1 with only 2 interventionists.
Okay.
And that's and one of them is going to be teaching dyslexia most of the day.
Right.
So we just don't have the manpower. And in Kinder, I feel like it's better for them just to be learning and absorbing.
Absolutely.
Now, there may be a few exceptions, but overall, that's how we're going to do it.
Yes.
Okay, so in second grade, we're going to start out with SEL, and then we're going to start the morning with our independent reading, silent reading, and word work. So that's going to be up to the teacher to figure out exactly the best way to do that within that time frame. Then transition to the rug with our reading mini lesson, then our guided reading, independent reading. So they will be pulling groups during that time.
Okay.
Then the flex, then getting into math, then science. Now this is a pretty long block. So there's naturally going to be transitions during the flex intervention time, because we're going to be doing mostly push in, mostly.
Yes.
And also with our new neighborhood pods with that flex learning space.
Yes, that would be amazing.
We've already got the tables, we've got the rugs, we even have projectors in the walls. It's really nice. So
I'm really excited.
there won't be a lot of time lost, but there's still going to be some transitions. So if somebody needs some sensory time, that could almost be built into that.
Yes.
Okay, so then we're down here to lunch. So then they have their recess, they come back, and of course bathroom will be in here. And then they've got their reading, then their their writing, and then their share time for the last 5 minutes to end their conferencing. Then they're going to transition restroom, go to specials. So second grade has the last specials of the day.
Okay.
Now, right now, realistically, when they come back, they're just going to use this time to pack up and make sure that everybody knows how to get to their dismissal locations. Right. However, by October, that will stop, and they're going to be doing their math journals, their math spirals. Okay?
Okay.
And then go home. Okay, so then third grade, start out with SEL. They're going to have writing in the morning, quick break, and then they're going to have their independent reading. Then their reading workshop, recess, restroom, math. They're going to have their lunch. Then right after lunch, third grade will have their flex time, have a transition, have specials, transition, and then science. And I love that our 3, 4, and 5 have that really robust 60 minutes built in,
Yes.
uninterrupted. Because as you know, I mean, the science instruction is so important in all grade
Yes.
levels, but we are going to be doing a lot of science investigations in all grade levels, but in these especially, we need to have very protected time in order to do that.
Absolutely. I love that science is at the end of the day for our 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders because it keeps them into the class even throughout the end of the day when they might be tired, but they're doing an experiment, so they keep interested. So I like that.
I do too. I mean, it's everybody loves science,
Yes.
and everybody loves their science investigations, and it's a fun. It's a very. You're right. It's a way to re-engage
Yes.
if you're weary or if you're a little tired.
Yes.
It's also a really just a fun way to end the day.
Yes.
And as far as, and this is just kind of a byproduct of this, we're hoping. But, you know, a lot of times when a child gets in the car, what did you learn today?
Mhm.
I don't remember. Okay, well, so if they've just finished a really interesting, engaging lesson, well, they can talk about that science investigation.
Yeah.
And I just think that's really fun. As a parent, I would like to hear stories
Yes,
like
most
that
definitely.
instead of, I don't remember, or
Right.
nothing, even though we know that they learned a whole lot that day.
Right.
Okay, so that's 3rd grade. 4th grade, we are going to have our SEL at the beginning, and then with homeroom,
Okay.
and then they're going to switch. Then they're going to have their flex intervention. Then they're going to go into their or resource, and then they're going to go into their writing block. Then have a quick break, go into their reading block.
Okay.
And then they're going to switch again, switch rooms,
Mm-hmm.
go to specials, and then have a quick transition restroom before lunch, then have recess right after that, and then get into their math and science.
Okay.
And the reason why this was done is because the younger kids they naturally need more breaks.
Absolutely.
However, our 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, while they may appreciate a whole lot of little breaks, if we have a lot of little breaks for them, then their instructional blocks are going to be broken up too much.
Right.
And they need to also, you know, they're the older kids on campus. They need to learn more stamina as well.
Yes.
Okay. And then pack up and go home. So then 4th grade, I just did 4th. And then 5th grade, SEL, switch. Start with your writing, and obviously this is if you're the writing teacher, the ELR teacher. If you're the math teacher, then you're going to be doing both.
Right.
So, but anyway, the way it's broken down, next year, when we add a section, we will have a self-contained.
Okay.
Our bilingual 4th grade is going to move up, so we will have at least one, but we're probably going to grow another. So we'll have the 2 teachers that are pairing, that are partnering for departmentalization, and then we're going to have 2 that are self-contained.
Awesome.
So your self-contained teachers would actually follow this more to the nose,
Right.
to the letter. And so their flex intervention time is going to be around 10 o'clock or 10:10 to 11:10. Switch, have lunch, have your recess, have specials, and then have your math, and then science. And so if you look, like, the only real difference is that 4th has their flex time first thing, and 5th grade is right before lunch. But then if you look at the afternoon, like specials, lunch, and recess are all clustered together because of what I was just talking about.
Right.
And then get back in the room and buckle down and get busy.
Yes.
Okay, so that's about a week's worth of work in 20 or 25 minutes.
Right. Absolutely.
However, again, this is always a work in progress. It would be so lovely to create this and give it to our teachers and go over it and it actually work for the whole year.
Right.
But realistically, we can't be that inflexible.
Right.
However, my plan, once we finalize it, well, we're going to, when we come back in August for PD, we're going to sit down with every grade level and department with admin, and we're going to talk about this in detail
Okay.
instead of just shooting it out in an email, because there are going to be a lot of questions, and those questions deserve really robust, detailed answers. And through that conversation, they'll get their questions answered, and hopefully they'll feel good, and maybe we can relieve some anxiety about the schedule. It's also a good opportunity for us to be good listeners. And because there may, as perfect as I think this is, there may be something that is absolutely not going to work for a grade level, and I just haven't anticipated it.
Right.
Or maybe there's something with a special needs student that I'm going to have to rearrange for. Like, you just don't know.
Right.
So what we're going to do, though, is we're going to try to say, after we meet, let's give this until October. Like, we have to work through this, and then at the end of October, we'll meet again, and we'll talk about it. We're not going to change it, like, but you have to give it a chance,
right?
And then we'll talk more. But the ultimate goal is just to have consistency in all of this, so that way the children know what to anticipate every day. The teachers have a really strong routine, and then no energy is wasted on anxiety about, well, what are we going to do today? Do we really have to do this, or is she going to change it up? And so there we go.
Awesome.
What are your questions?
I do have a question. So I know we talked about we do have one 4th grade bilingual section this year, and you mentioned that they will move up to 5th grade next year.
Yes.
So my question becomes, since we're going to be adding a bilingual section that will be self-contained, and then you mentioned probably adding a general ed section that will be self-contained, how do you decide as the principal? Do you collaborate with those teachers on who will be self-contained and what goes into that? And then how do you decide, like, which kids will be in a self-contained class versus switching? And
okay, those are really good questions. So what we do is we start out by looking at the teacher's skill set. There are some teachers that are just masters at everything, and they just have very flexible personalities, and they're like, whatever, I am an equal opportunity learner. And there are some teachers that just have a natural preference for a self-contained classroom. I was one of those teachers. When I was in the classroom, I didn't like the departmentalization because I wanted them the whole day, because I wanted to have that relationship with the kids, and I also wanted that accountability for myself. And so, and that's okay, but it's equally okay that there are other teachers who are so devoted to their content, whether it be math, science, or ELAR, and that is really their strong suit, and that's how they're more comfortable. Well, I want to accommodate that too. And so when we can accommodate it, we do, but sometimes we can't.
Absolutely.
And so, like in 5th grade, it was really easy. We have 2 teachers. We have one that is an incredibly strong math science teacher, and then her partner, who's an incredibly strong ELAR teacher, and they just are naturally pairing, and it's a delightful situation all around.
Right.
The bilingual, the C&I department made the decision that based on the new bilingual model they're following, that we've been writing curriculum for, all of those will be self-contained.
Okay.
So those will not be departmentalized anymore like they had been on some campuses.
Okay.
So that is standard.
Okay.
And that is really really good for our students, because they're going to essentially be looping with their teacher. Right. And so there are so many benefits to that. However, going on with your question, sometimes a teacher has to be, they have to do something, they have to do an assignment that really provides a lot of growth opportunity for them, and the expectation is everybody grows and everybody learns. We're all learners. We all have to model that vulnerability for each other and our kids. However, sometimes it's a big leap, and so, like, as a 0-year teacher coming in teaching self-contained, that is a tremendous amount of learning and juggling and scheduling, and so we always want to provide as much support as we can, but for teachers, like in those situations, we almost want to give them an IV.
Okay.
And just give them every bit of support that we can.
Right.
Because we want them to feel successful because they want to feel successful.
Absolutely.
And we want their kids to be successful.
Yes.
And so also that ties in very closely with culture.
Yes.
As you know. If a teacher is feeling supported, they are more likely to want to stay.
Most definitely.
And we want people to stay.
Yes.
So I think the last part of your question was about class lists.
Yes.
So that's a great question. And yes, we take that into consideration. Mm-hmm. This year's unique because we don't know our kids.
Right.
They are names on a page. What I'm doing right now is I'm meeting with all the principals of incoming campuses of these kiddos that we're getting, trying not to get any dirt on them, but just to know about chemistry and personality, because you know that
that's important.
That's really important to keep in mind. And also we are running our special programs reports because it's not equitable to have all the GT in one class and all of the resource or all DBRCs in one class. We need to spread that out as much as we can and still be able to manage minutes for SPED for IEPs.
Most definitely. Awesome. All right.
Okay, and that's a work in progress.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
What other questions?
I think that's it.
Okay.
I think you did a wonderful job of explaining how you like start it based on like lunch and recess minutes, and then you kind of build from there. And so this makes a whole lot of sense seeing it laid out on how you built it versus just in my head going, I don't know how to even start.
Where to start.
So, yeah.
Well, this is really personal, and everybody has their own personal process of approaching it. So that's how I do it. Now, when I was at my previous campus, well, I guess 2 campuses ago now, we had a lot. It was a much larger campus, and I was the AP, and so I did the master schedule, and I also created the rotations for specials.
Okay.
And so that was a whole other ball game. And the way I ended up, the only way I could be happy with the final product was I actually had the teachers' names on thin Post-its, and I laid it on the floor a big grid, and I just moved it around. I'd started on a spreadsheet, but I was losing time typing and copying and pasting, so I just took up the floor in my office for about a week, like it was about 9 years ago now, and I told my family, you can't go in here, just leave, this is my work in progress, and then after a while it worked, and then we've been following something similar to that ever since. Although this year, coming to this campus, it's going to look different because our kids are only going to be going during specials, they're only going to be going either to music or pre-E. And they're splitting it, but we have odd sections in some, so I haven't gotten there yet. I've been, you know me, I've been reflecting on it.
Absolutely.
And so in about a week, it'll look like this will be on paper.
Awesome.
I hope.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for sitting down with me. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. I'm so excited that you're doing this.
Thank you. Hey, all right, so here we are for our conclusion. I hope you enjoyed my time with Miss Connor. She's excellent. So, again, you'll see me glancing to the side to make sure I'm hitting all the prompts. So what criteria was used to design the schedule? Well, obviously, she taught me that there are a lot of things that go into making a schedule. So not only do we have to take into effect staff, how much staff we have per grade level, but how many students per grade level. And then we need to take into effect also the student needs. We don't want to put every high need student in one class, and we don't want to put every GT student in one class. So there are a lot of things that go into designing this and using this criteria. How does it affect instruction? So again, we don't want to overload one teacher with a certain thing and not give another teacher kind of the same opportunities. So it affects instruction by just trying to level everything out as best as we can to the best of our abilities and give those teachers a fair shot at actually teaching our students to the best of their abilities as well. What staff and personnel are needed for classes? So obviously each school is assigned a certain number of staff that they have, and are allowed to have. So we are opening up this year. So we have 3 teachers per grade level for this first year. Now we are built to house at least 5, so we are not at full capacity. We do need special ed staff on campus. We have 3 sections of special ed. We have resource, a functional academics class, and a life skills class. We need a dyslexia staff. We have intervention staff. We have our general ed teachers. We have paraprofessionals that play a very important role in our school. So there are all kinds of personnel that are needed to help make a school run. What determines class size? So again, this goes back to how many teachers per grade level do we have and how many kids in that grade level do we have? So I know that our 5th grade class currently this year at JRoach is going to be our biggest class. And we are trying to get an extra section, another permission for a teacher. But currently our district is not giving us that. So right now, our class sizes in 5th grade are going to be fairly large. What's the basic step-by-step process to building the schedule? Mrs. Connor explained it to me perfectly. She explained it as building blocks. So she always starts with specials times and lunch times. And then from there, she is able to put in those academic blocks and recess and brain breaks and all of that other important stuff that goes into the school day. But she always starts with giving each grade level an assigned lunchtime and an assigned specials time, and she builds from there. What factors determine the class times and facilities? For example, classrooms, gym, cafeteria, etc., used throughout the school day. So what factors determine that? I would say, again, the staff, being realistic as far as your kinder babies are not probably going to want to be the last lunch. They're going to get hungry. They're going to need that movement break for specials, probably before one of our 5th graders is going to need it, depending. So there are all kinds of different factors that go into it, and it's about being realistic with how old are the kids, how long do we think they'll be able to do this and this and this, can they handle it, can they manage it. Is the focus primarily on maximizing student learning? 100%. So creating a master schedule, that is what you're trying to do. The entire process is making sure that we are maximizing student learning time, meeting all of our requirements as far as instruction time, and just giving our kiddos the best chances for success as we possibly can. That means incorporating those sensory breaks and brain breaks, because no child is going to be able to sit in a desk all day. I know I can't. Does the process allow for teacher collaboration? It does. So I know that in Belton ISD, each teacher gets a full 55-minute conference as well as a 30-minute duty-free lunch. So I know that on our conferences, we are encouraged to sit down with our team and kind of collaborate with our team. Now, me being the resource teacher on my lunch, a lot of times the classroom teachers are in class. So it makes collaborating with them a little bit more difficult. However, I have spoken to Mrs. Connor, my principal, and we've actually discussed possibly getting into more of a co-teach model, which would give me more time and opportunities to really, really collaborate with those classroom teachers. How do school policies and practices protect the quality instructional time and student learning? So another great thing about Miss Connor is that she is very structured and she knows what she wants and she's going to go after it. So with that being said, she is on it as far as those schedules and what those kiddos need to be doing at that time and where they should be. She knows it. She knows her stuff. And as far as like our policies and stuff, everything we do as a staff is set up to protect that quality instructional time. There is no downtime. If we are not doing instructional things at the moment, it's because we're doing a sensory break or a brain break. There is no, let's just hang out. And that's one of our policies. We do everything we can to give our kiddos the best chances at success. How is teacher planning time allocated to ensure collegial collaboration? Well, teacher planning time is allocated, like I said, every teacher gets 55-minute conference period. And so we all get at least 55 minutes throughout the day to collaborate with our teams and plan, and that's given to us throughout the day. So that's always helpful. Reflecting on our field activity experience. What went well? I feel like just my relationship with Mrs. Connor helps the whole process of this video go well. I know that it's not professionally edited or anything like that, and there are definitely things I need to work on as well. I noticed myself saying absolutely a lot, so just learning different responses, and as we go along in this program, this graduate program, hopefully feeling more prepared and like I can really give significant and good input to help do those processes. Now, again, she already had it created before I happened to go in that day, and so I was mainly listening to her process. What would I change? I would change some of my reactions, and I probably would have asked more questions if I could really look back and go back. What surprising information was revealed? Surprising information it wasn't necessarily surprising, but to me, like, the most valuable information I got from her was how to even get started building the master schedule. And it's one thing that I struggle with as a resource teacher is building a schedule. How do you start? And so she was able to lay out for me how she gets started, and it made a lot of sense. I think her and I learn the same and we communicate similarly, and so it was really helpful for me to hear her perspective on how she gets it done. How will this experience transform my practice as a school administrator? I think with Mrs. Connor just being so open to having me as her admin intern this school year and so willing to help me and sit down with me to get my school stuff done, she's so excited for me, and I think that is just going to help me when I get into the administration, because I feel like I will be the same way. I want success for all of my future staff, and if there's anything I can do to help them succeed, I'm all for it.